name is Heber Brown III. I am the host of BrothaSpeak. Hello and welcome to BrothaSpeak. I am your host. My name is Heber Brown, and we are certainly delighted that you chose once more to log on to www.blacktvonline.com and to tune into the BrothaSpeak show. We certainly are always pleased to have our mainstays on the show, Mr. Ted Smith, our educator, activist extraordinaire, to my far left, and on my right, Mr. Tyrone Keys, who is one of the most insightful and articulate brothers that I know. And so I'm blessed to be in good company with these two, and also blessed to be in good company with a candidate for governor of the state of Maryland. You're saying, where is he? Well, he's right here. This is Mr. Ed Boyd, and perhaps you haven't heard him, seen his face, or heard his message. And so that's why we wanted to bring him on. This show is, in fact, called BrothaSpeak. And we needed to bring on a brother who is running for governor of the state. Mr. Ed Boyd, thank you so much and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
We thought it important to have you on because I've been extra sensitive over this past election season. I've been extra sensitive to the politics of media, I guess you could call it, where you have been marginalized out of mainstream media. And while Mr. Kevin Zeese, a candidate for U.S. Senate, has had some successes in breaking that corporate media shield, you, on the other hand, from my feeling, haven't been able to really break through and get your message out. That's pretty accurate?
That's pretty accurate.
So tell the people about who you are and tell them about your campaign and why you're running for governor of the state.
Well, once again, I'm Ed Boyd, Green Party candidate for governor. I'm the first African American to run for governor in the state of Maryland in the general election. It's not been done before. I've been in activism and politics ever since I can remember. My first instance of it was when I was 7 years old. My dad tried to start a union shop at his job. This is back in the 60s. This is in the South. He got fired. All in all, he used to always tell us that, even though it didn't succeed, he did the best he could. And no matter what I've done in life, the number one thing that I've tried to do is to, do the best that I can do. And to always work and try to be a voice for the voiceless. Mm-hmm. At 17, I worked and I was a dishwasher, and I was the only African American guy in the dish room. It was Hispanic brothers back in the back, and during that time, I was in high school, and we would get abused verbally. I mean, just terrible abuse going on in the restaurant I worked at. And one night, it got very hostile. I stopped. I said, "Enough is enough." We refused to wash another dish. And if you've ever eaten in a restaurant don't stay open very long if they have dirty dishes. And we asked for respect. We asked for the possibility to advance all of our guys. If there were special skills they had, let them be able to do that type of thing. And it worked. We got the owners. The owners agreed, and I've been working, pretty much like that ever since. I worked with a guy by the name of Mitch Snyder, who was an advocate for homelessness back in the 80s when I got out of service. I'm a disabled veteran. I found myself homeless, and I found myself drawn to Mitch and his passion to help those that was less fortunate. And I began to work more and more with him and deal with the philosophy of helping others and having this to be a lifelong endeavor. And that brings us to right here, where I hear that everyone throughout the state is really angry at the way things are now, and they feel as though they're not hearing a voice. They don't have a voice, and I have stepped up to the plate.
Now, Mr. Boyd, you look like us, but long ago I've done away with the philosophy that says you vote for whoever looks like you. and some persons have taught me, some candidates have taught me that I cannot do that. So share with our viewers and where you come down on the issues and how your issues align with what have been majority African American values.
Absolutely. The number one thing I enjoy, I want a living wage for all citizens of Maryland. The minimum wage is inadequate. It only breeds poverty. Another thing I would like is a health care for all. We call it single-payer health care. No matter what your economic situation is, you're supposed to be able to get health care. I'm for free post-secondary school education. As probably the number one thing that will breed poverty is the lack of proper education so they can get the jobs. I find it amazing that in the city of Baltimore, we have all these jobs that are supposed to be coming in, the biotech centers and all these different high-paying wage jobs. Yet, it takes education to get that.
Yeah, right.
And we have a governor. We have a governor that has not fully funded the needs of the citizens so they can get that education provided. And probably the number one thing that got me cranked up about it was the BG&E issue, the Baltimore Gas and Electric and the Constellation Energy issue, where it's apparent that public utility, as it stands now, it's not public. And it should be. It should be run by the public. It should be owned by the public. And that's not being done, yet we're paying more and more money into others' pockets who do not have the working class people best interests at heart. Now, I would think that our elected officials would do that, especially within the leadership, would say, yeah, it's a good idea. It's been done in 2,000 other municipalities throughout the country. 5 municipalities within the state of Maryland. What's wrong with the citizens owning BG&E Constellation? Apparently, we're stepping on toes because my two opponents, Robert Ehrlich and Martin O'Malley, are in the pockets of Constellation BG&E to the tune of $150,000 and counting. So when they say that they want what is best for the citizens of Maryland when it comes to the BG&E Constellation energy process, we know they're not really telling the truth because they both eat and drink from the trough called big business and Constellation Energy.
Let me ask you something real quick. From the people I speak to in the circles I roam, when I talk to people about politics and talk to them about voting in this gubernatorial race, for any African American person who's kept their eyes open for the past few years in Baltimore City, they often say, I'm not voting for Mayor Martin O'Malley. I'm not voting for Martin O'Malley. He's just off the table. That's it. But they will vote for Robert Ehrlich again. It's almost like an anti-O'Malley vote. I almost went to Chavez's comment, but I smell the sulfur in the air. But they'll say, listen, I'm not going to vote for Martin O'Malley, but I'll vote for Robert Ehrlich. What do you say to those African American voters who say, I'd rather deal with Ehrlich again for another?
They have to really do their research.
Okay.
Really do their reading on what Robert Ehrlich. They did the same.
Robert O'Malley.
They're the same. I have said that so many times. They are the same. They are a two-headed monster. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They are exactly the same. They're for big business and they're for profiteers. They've done absolutely nothing for the working class and the middle class and the poor people in Maryland. No matter what he says. When I was a kid, I remember going to a magic show. And the magician was doing everything on this side. I was looking on this side. I saw how the trick was being done. And when the magician stood up and said, "Oh, I'm great. I said, "No, I saw what you were doing on the other side." That's what Ehrlich is doing.
Okay.
He puts out, "Well, I've funded Thornton, I've done this, I've done that." Read deep within what he has actually done. Mm-hmm. He's still shortchanged Baltimore City Public Schools. It's to the tune of $1.08 billion.
That's 1.08 billion that they would have sent. What's the old superintendent to Florida on? Anyways, I mean they have a history as a municipality of wasting money that's well documented. Baltimore City. I would like to ask, if elected governor, this is an issue that's near and dear to my heart, and I think that this is one of those issues that corporate media has just kind of put on the shelf. You guys don't worry about that. But this is just something that is so important. What I'm talking about is eminent domain. Now, if I buy a house, and I own a house, it's not, a house like Eber's house, it's a little plot. But anyway, I don't know Robert Ehrlich or Martin O'Malley. Now, this guy over here may. And under the current Supreme Court ruling, it just seems to me as though if you have a relationship with the power brokers and you want to put a Walmart on the land in which my house now sits, you can just go and rub elbows with your buddies and make it happen.
Call Bob.
So what would you do about that? Because really and truly, that to me just violates one of our privileges as citizens, and that's the right to property. Now, I'm all for, I have never had a problem with eminent domain that is set up, to build an extension of 95 or an Air Force base. Of course, I wouldn't like it, but I wouldn't have as much to say about it if you what you're doing is transferring ownership from one citizen to another under this new Supreme Court ruling, the Kelso versus New London. How would you address that?
Well, I'm the type of guy that I'll tell you, we have experts, and I'll be the first to tell you that I have not read that.
It's fair.
And I'll be the first.
Well,
but I like to say this here. When it comes, I have to look at it as just a regular common guy. I'm just a regular common guy. If someone come to me and they say, no matter what, we're going to take your land to build whatever they want to put on there, I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong just for the mere fact of the situation we're supposed to live in, the United States of America. I don't think that's right. I would want to do everything in my power, if in that position, to be able to cut those ties between politicians and big business where they make that happen.
Well, it's easy to do.
Can I get specific for a moment?
Go right ahead.
Because I think it's very important. Thank you, Mr. Keys. But I think that it's a very important issue. And for me, and I've been trying to raise all heaven and hell about it for the past few years with the EBDI project over in East Baltimore. For those of you who are not from this area, EBDI in East Baltimore, it's a situation where a lot of Baltimore residents are being moved, relocated. And at the time when I first started advocating for the citizens of East Baltimore, EBDI, East Baltimore Development Incorporated, they were offering up to $70,000 per family to be relocated somewhere else. I drove through East Baltimore yesterday around Wolf Street, and the houses are gone. You see dirt.
Yep.
Where families used to live, and it's difficult. Well, I would assume it would be difficult for you as the governor, because Johns Hopkins pretty much owns East Baltimore about now, and they're also the largest employer, if I'm not mistaken, in the state. In the state. So how would you balance that relationship of, not totally turning off the largest employer in the state, but at the same time advocating for everyday common Joes like me?
Well, you have to have a balance. You're right about that. And that's where I would have to watch myself in being, who am I there for? Am I there for the citizens of Maryland, or am I there for big business? And we have to take that to the citizens. At the end of the day, I'm for the citizens versus the largest employer. Now, I may not get a whole lot of friends that way, But I mean, I've always been a fighter for those who feel disenfranchised, for those who feel as though they do not have a voice.
You know, Heber, I think that this is a bigger issue than just something to take to a singular politician, what both of you are raising. I think that there's an invisible government that runs the city of Baltimore and probably many other urban areas. I mean, when you look at the Baltimore Development Corporation and who really makes the decisions, but most citizens don't know about it.
Greater Baltimore Committee.
When you talk about the Baltimore Development Corporation, the Greater Baltimore Committee, and like Martin O'Malley goes with 80% or higher of all the proposals they put forth. They have 10-year plans. Man, they have already planned years back what they were going to do, but the majority of citizens, you know, we just hear about it essentially after the fact. But we need, I mean, what he has to do in the Green Party is doing, and independent political candidates, we have to work with independent media to put the spotlight and raise the consciousness of citizens so that they'll know about the 10-year plan. Right. So that they'll know that this is coming down the pike. This is what they plan to do. We need truth tellers in the mix. We need people that will investigate, people that will raise the consciousness of citizens. I mean, there's a larger issue here because there's an invisible government that's really making the decisions, and the people that we see are just the puppets. But we need to look to the puppet masters.
The question then becomes the one I asked on the previous show, and I'll ask you now. How do you get past an electorate that is, I mean, if you go down on the street right now and ask who was the last winner of, what's the show, Dancing with the Stars, people could probably tell you anything you want to know about that. But if you get into this issue of eminent domain and the Greater Baltimore Committee, I bet you 10 out of 10, you know, that we just run into may not even know what we're talking about. So how do you get past, you know, what society is forced to think about or led into thinking about today, and get them to recognize not only these issues but your campaign and, you know, the things that you're trying to do to become an independent voice that really is representative of the people?
But I think that's the responsibility of me, of the Green Party, and avenues such as this. No matter how many times we feel as though that we're not making headway, if one person is hurted, we have become victorious. No one said it would be easy. My dad always told me that in order to get the treasure, we sometimes got to get our hands dirty. That means maybe not this time, maybe not the next election, but every time that we do what we're doing, every time a show like this is being put out, someone is listening, someone is hearing, and you know, at the end of the day, as long as I feel as though I have done my best, that's all I can ask. That's all that can be asked of me. The citizens, they have a responsibility. They have to say, wait a minute, I'm upset the way things are. What do I have to do to make a change in order for me to get this out of my system? I don't watch regular news anymore.
I mean,
but there's
no reason to. The names change.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've had to go to independent media for my news. It took for me to get out of my avenue of comfortability and seek out, just like this show. Kevin sent me a link. I had never heard of this show before. I'm a fan of this show now. That's what I did. And what will I do when I get home? I will email all my friends and we'll send a link and say,
you're trying to get our vote, man. Come on now.
Hey, once again, I've not been bred to be a politician. I'm not a professional spin doctor. But I'm gonna tell you something. There has to come a time where all of us, have to get out of that avenue of comfortability and say, sacrifices must be made. Because as long as we feel comfortable, as long as the need to make the sacrifice is not there, that invisible government will still run.
Can I make a recommendation? I would like to make just a recommendation, whether for this election and beyond this election, to touch base with a group, the Algebra Project.
Yeah.
It started with Bob Moses, an activist group of youngsters. These people are 14, 15, 16, and 17 that know about the issues that the adults do not.
Yeah.
And if you can galvanize youth that are coming in the hundreds for just protests and involvements and have them be your legwork and say that come hell or high water, this is going to be done. You're not stopping us. We demand that we're going to be educated.
Yeah.
We demand that this is going to happen. I mean, any movement, even the movement to found this country, the youth have been at the crux of it.
Absolutely.
If the civil rights movement, whether it has been youth. If you get youth, and everybody might talk about how that youth are being miseducated, but we're getting roses that are growing out of concrete by the hundreds. And if you connect with them, things will begin to change within this area.
Let me dovetail on that real quick, because I think that's kind of key on what I've been thinking about as far as it relates to the Green Party. I was at a forum yesterday where someone put a formula up on the board and said that change equals dissatisfaction times vision times a plan. That's change. And I think in our society now we have a higher level of dissatisfaction than we've had in previous times. With the Vietnam War of my generation is what I'm calling it. But I want to know, what is the Green Party's plan? You guys are at a crossroads, not a crossroads, you're at a very important time where younger, particularly African American voters, are considering other options. Now, whereas my grandmama and them may stick with the Democratic Party because we've always voted Democrat, I think there's another group of voters coming behind them. What's your plan to reach out to African American voters to pull them away from a party that historically they have been tied to for a number of years, decades, and come to the Green Party, which they may know nothing at all about?
I'll tell you where I got my idea from. There's a lady in California, Donna Warren, an African American woman. She is running for lieutenant governor. And at the time that I pulled up her site and read her story, I was feeling down about being in the Green Party because it seems like I was going against brick walls. She said the reason why she got into the Green Party is she was in her South Central library reading a book, and two white dudes came up to her and started talking to her about politics. She thought she was the crazy one. All her years, she had the same anger, the same disenfranchisement of how she felt about the country and her state that these two guys came up with. Then she said they began to meet in group. I say that to say that what the Green Party, we have a responsibility to go into places that we're not used to going, to talking to people that we're not used to talking to. And the folks that we talk to must, just listen. You will be quite surprised, as I am, to how much alike we are than we are different. And you go to our Green Party site, look at our 10 values, and I'm quite sure that you can connect. A person will be able to connect with that. Do I think we'll all live kumbaya? Probably not. But I'm a realist. And I understand that if a person feels that things are okay with them right now, they'll never be green. They won't be green. But if you're like me, and if you're like the over the millions of people that are throughout the country that feel just dissatisfied with the way things are now, the way the leadership, their political leadership is leading them, the way in the state of Maryland where it seems like big business is the status quo, then you'll change the green. And I was in Park Heights Saturday before going to the NAACP conference. That's an angry group of people there because they feel right. no one is listening. Yes, they have every right to be angry. When they go to their elected officials and they're turned a blind eye. When they bring up a press conference and no one that is part of that leadership shows up. The Green Party shows up. Algebra Project, when they did the health care.
You were there, Mrs. East was there, yeah.
Single payer health care, that should be a no-brainer.
Well, Mr. Boyd, before we wrap up, I have a few questions, a few brother questions. This is BrothaSpeak. I want to ask you some brother questions.
Okay.
First candidate for governor, African American man. You know, while some Democrats are crying and whining about African Americans not being brought to the table, here we got the Green Party puts up an African American man for governor of the state. So, brother questions. Where you come down on reparations?
We need them. I'm for it. Me and my campaign manager, we talk about that all the time. When you have laws, when you have everything that's been placed to keep a segment of our population down, they have laws that are probably still in the books. It's not like reading that 14th Amendment, everybody gets so cheery up about. It just created the prison system. I read a book called Bursting Slavery and how the prison system got started and what was going on during that time, right around they were getting the 14th Amendment together and everything. We're talking about our so-called elected officials, which is everyone's equal, and yet everything that was put in place, from it was against the law to go to a school, it was against the law to read. It was, the prison industrial complex. Mm-hmm. All of that equals a bringing down of a segment of the population to keep a continuum of a group of folks in a situation where they have to fight and struggle every day, you know. Even in something as recent as in Park Heights, where there's 18 liquor stores in a 1.8 mile radius. There's something wrong with that.
Let me ask you a question, a brother question, because he's not going to ask it. But do you think that reparations should take a financial form? Should reparations be some sort of financial settlement?
I don't.
See, you were about to take him out to dinner.
I know.
That works for me.
Hey,
that works for me.
Yes.
That works for me.
Well, remember, I said yes, but I don't think.
But you don't think it should be?
There's
Dave Chappelle had a very funny comedic routine on what would happen if so many received reparations.
What happens? Yeah. I mean,
so what form should it take?
What my idea is, what, for the most part, you know, we know how the powers that be strengthened up, but for the most part, what gives about as equal footing as anything in society, and that's education. Free education for all, and especially all that suffered.
But see, with that, I came up on the corner of North and Dukeman, and we weren't just there because we liked the neighborhood.
I understand that.
Because we didn't have any money.
Yeah.
Yet, I went to college. I mean, so to me, it's like I am one of those people who was able to go to college. I didn't go to Harvard. I went to Coppin. But later on in life, you know, I went to, you know, a different school, got a master's. But that already exists. If you want it. That already exists.
But why not have a structure that's set up not just for exceptions to make it, but for many to make it? Because you can set up structures where many can make it, not just a handful that you put up and say, let's clap for the tokens.
What was preventing, why am I the exception? What was preventing my classmates who were in equally economically challenged circumstances.
It wasn't structured.
I
And it could be a number of factors as well.
I hate to do this, but I'll have to answer that with a question. I lived in Liberty City. I was born and raised in Liberty City. Now, I don't know if you've ever been to Liberty City before, but I really would not wish my worst enemy to go to Liberty City. It's a place where if you don't run the red light, the odds of you getting your car stolen and you beaten up is very good. I used to hang out with about 7 other guys. We had the same situation. We couldn't afford school. It's either getting a drug game, getting part of the prison population, dying, or going in the military. I went in the military. My other 7 buddies are all dead because they got into the game. What changed? What made me change from them? And we all was in the same boat.
So then one of them, it's very possible then, if you reverse time, that there are a lot of variables involved. It's quite possible that one of them could be sitting here right now,
Absolutely.
or in Annapolis, in the State House right now, and God forbid, you be in more challenging circumstances. So they're variable.
But I think the point is we want to create the structures where a greater number of people. Yeah, okay, you made it through the door. I may have made it through the door, whatever. But the door is cracked. Let's open the door all the way. And most people can get through, as opposed to.
I just don't see. Wait a minute. I just don't see why the door is not open. I mean, there is.
You don't see why.
Wait a minute.
North and Dukeland. You don't see why.
There are financial programs that enable you to go to college.
Most people don't have knowledge of those programs. Or there's requirements there or qualifications where they might not meet.
So what do you propose? A guy that comes around and knocks on your door and say, "Hey, listen, here are all the."
No, but what I'm saying is keep the single mother in mind who has 3 or 4 kids, who has to put food on the table, who may not have time or have internet access to go and pull down a PDF form and print it out and fill it in there. We can keep on. We got 60 seconds. I'm sorry. We do this all the time. Yeah. But last brother question, then we got to go.
Okay.
Are you familiar with Eddie Conway?
Yes, sir.
My brother Eddie Conway has been locked up for about 36 years as a victim of COINTELPRO. Yep. And it's past time for him to be pardoned and brought out.
Absolutely.
He and Paul Coates are 2 of the most famous Baltimore Black Panthers in our history. As governor, would you get our brother out, get a pardon, and let the brother come on the show?
Absolutely, absolutely. I remember going to a Eddie Conway event at University of Baltimore.
Okay.
And I was inspired. I was very much inspired by that.
Appreciate it. Eddie, we're thinking about you, man. Last one, give information about how people can get more information about your campaign.
Okay, we have a website. It's edboardforgovernor.org. Check the website. We talk about Marylandization. We talk about ending the war. We talk about bringing our troops home. Single-payer health care. Things that are a concern for the citizens of Maryland. And that's it.
Thank you so much for being on the show, Mr.
Thank
Boyd.
you.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Good luck in the campaign.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for running. A brother running for governor. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Another treat for you, our faithful viewers and listeners on BrothaSpeak. We really appreciate you coming by. Once again, we certainly thank Mr. Obi Linton for his this is Black TV Online was an idea of his that he brought into the world, and we really appreciate it. And we pray that you'll continue to support Black TV Online with coming to check out the programs and maybe cut the check or two, help a brother out. We really appreciate it. See you next time on Brother.